Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a new episode of Hurricane D. Today, I'm not going to talk about movies or music, but anything in ancient history and the early lights ring rules. The earliest known depiction of boxing comes from a Sumerian relief in Iraq from the 3rd millennium before Christ. A relief sculpture from the Egyptian Thebes on 1350 before Christ shows both boxers and spectators. These early Middle Eastern and Egyptian depictions show contest fighters were either bare-fisted or had a band their wrist. The earliest evidence of fist fight with can be found on the Mino between the 1500 and the 1400 before Christ. Various types of boxing in ancient India also. The earliest references to Musti Yuddha come from classic Vedic epic such as the Ramayana and Rig Veda. The Mahabharata describes two combatants boxing with clenched fists and fighting with kicks, finger strikes, knee strikes, and headbutts. Duels were often fought to the death. During the period of Western satraps, Rudradaman, in addition to being well versed in great sciences, which included Indian classical music, Sanskrit grammar, and logic, was said to be an excellent horseman, charioteer, elephant rider, swordsman, and boxer. The Gurbila Shemi and the 18th century Sikh text gives numerous references to Musti Yuddha. In ancient Greece, boxing was a well-developed sport and enjoyed consistently popularity. In Olympic terms, it was first introduction in Olympic terms. It was first in the 23rd Olympiad on the 688 before Christ. The boxers would wind leather thongs around their hands in order to protect them. There were no rounds, and boxers fought until one of them acknowledged defeat or could not continue. Weight categories were not used, which means heavyweights had a tendency to dominate. The style of boxing practice typically featured an advanced left leg stance, with the left arm semi-extended as a guard being used for striking, and with the right arm drawn back ready to strike. This was the head of the opponent, which was primarily the target. And there is little evidence to suggest that targeting the body was common. Spectator sport in ancient Rome also, and fighters protected their knuckles wrapped around their fists. Leather was used to become a weapon. Metal studs were introduced to the thongs that make the sisters. Fighting events were held at Roman amphitheaters and were quite. Records of classical boxing activity disappear after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, when wearing the weapons became common once again, and an interest in fighting with the fist won. However, there are detailed records of various fist fighting sports that were maintained in different cities and provinces of Italy between the 12th and the 17th centuries. There was also a sport in ancient Rus called kulachny boy, or fist fighting. The Russians will apologize my bad accent. As the wearing of swords became less common, there was renewed interest in fetching with fists. The sport would later resurface in England during the early 16th century in the form of bare-knuckle boxing, sometimes referred as prize fighting. The first documented account of bare-knuckle fight in England appeared in 1681 in the London Protestant Mercury, and the first knuckle champion was James Pigg in 1719. This is also the time when the word boxing first came to be used. The earliest form of modern boxing was very different. Contests in Mr. Fick's addition to fist fighting also contained fencing and cudgeling. On January 6, 1681, the first recorded boxing match took place in Britain when Christopher, second Duke of Albemarle, and later Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica, engineered about between his butler and his butcher, with the latter winning the prize. Early fighting had no written rules, divisions, or round limits, and no referee. In general, it was extremely chaotic. The article of boxing was published in Nottingham in 1713 by Sir Thomas Parkins, a successful wrestler from Nottinghamshire, who had practiced the techniques he described. The article, a single page, wrestling and fencing, Gymnasta, the in-play or Cornish hug wrestler, described a system of headbutting, punching, eye gouging, chokes, and hard throws, not recognized in boxing today. Rules called the Broughton's Rules were introduced by champion Jack Broughton in 1743 to protect fighters in the ring where death sometimes occurred. Under these rules, if a man went down and could not continue after a count of 30 seconds, the fight was over. Hitting a down fighter below the waist were prohibited. Broughton encouraged the use of mufflers, a form of padded bandage or mitten, to be used in jousting, or sparring sessions in training, and in exhibition matches. Tom Molyneux versus Tom Creek in a heavyweight championship of England, 1811. Allowed the fighters an advantage not enjoyed by today's boxers. They permitted the fighter to drop to one knee to end the round and begin the 30-second count at any time. As a fighter had an opportunity to recover. However, this was considered unmanly and was frequently disallowed by additional rules negotiated by the seconds of the boxer. In modern boxing, there is a 3-minute limit to rounds, unlike the down fighter ends the round rule. Intentionally going down in modern boxing will cause the recovering fighter to lose points in the scoring system. Furthermore, as the contestants have heavy leather gloves and wrist wraps to protect their hands, they use different punching techniques to preserve their hands because the head was a common target to hit full out. Almost all period manuals have powerful straight punches with the whole body and to the face, including forehead, as the basic blows. Ring rules introduce measures that remain in effect for professional boxing to this day, such as outlawing butting, gouging, scratching, kicking, hitting a man while down, holding the ropes, and using resin, stones, or hard objects in the hands, and biting. Well, my friends, that was all for today. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel, like, and leave our comments down below. Good week.